kids, it's Pastor Austin
and Mr. Brandon
here with this week's Big Truth. So, welcome back. We are on Guide 5 of our New Creation series, and we're also talking about the word hope in kindergarten, first, and second grade. And so what we're trying to do is every time we introduce a new big truth and Bible verse and Bible story for the week, we want you guys to see, where do you see the hope that's there? That God's rule and reign is sovereign, that He is there, and that gives us hope. So let's jump into this week's big truth. Are you ready? This week's big truth is God offers adoption when we are orphans. God offers adoption when we are orphans. So there's a lot that's there to unpack. So let's go ahead and figure out where, first of all, does that come from? Well, it comes from our Bible verse. Our Bible verse this week is Ephesians chapter 2, verse 19. So Ephesians chapter 2, 19, I'm going to read it. I want you guys to listen. Where do you hear that big truth that God offers adoption when we are orphans? So it says this: so then you are no longer strangers and aliens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God. Now this one's a little tricky because you don't hear the words adoption or orphans, do you? But you may hear some words that are similar to that. So an orphan is someone that's outside of a family, and adoption means they've been brought into the family. So now that you kind of know a little bit of those definitions, let's read the verse again and see if you can hear the big truth that's there, that God offers adoption when we are orphans. So our verse this week is Ephesians chapter 2, verse 19, and it says this: so then you are no longer strangers and aliens, maybe orphans, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God. And so in other words, you've been brought into the family, into members of the household of God, which is adoption. So what good news that is, and what hope we have that we are outside of the family of God, but through Jesus we can be brought in and adopted into His family. So Mr. Brandon has a hook for us that's going to help us unpack that a little bit more.
Yeah, so for our hook this week, you guys are going to need to get a little creative. Maybe you got some construction paper or stuff at home, and you need to pull that out. So what I want you to do is to make a family tree. The suggestion is to trace your hand and your forearm to be the tree and the branches, and then cut out leaves to put on your tree with family members' names. And talk about immediate family, parents, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, grandparents. But let's go take that a little bit further. We're talking about God offers us adoption through Jesus. So talk about those people that, if you're a believer, that are believers, that you're part of their church family, you're part of God's family, and add those leaves onto your family tree too. Hope you guys have some awesome conversations of what it means to be a family member of God and how we can become that.
That's awesome. Yeah, what a great picture a family tree is, about how even though we all come from different places maybe, but there's a family, there's a connection that's there. And what we have to see is that we're outside of the family of God apart from Jesus, but through Jesus we can become a part of that family. We're adopted into God's family. So what a great illustration that is. So we've got a story for you guys that's going to give you an example of what that looks like, that played out in the Bible. So the story this week is found in 2 Samuel chapter 9, and it's the story of Mephibosheth. Can you guys say that out loud really fast 3 times? You're gonna say Mephibosheth. Pastor Austin can't even say it really well. All right, 1, 2, 3, go. All right, is your tongue a little tied? Yep. Mine is. So I wish I could figure out a cool name to rename him, but this is his name. So it's really not a good idea to rename people in the Bible. So the reason why this story is an illustration is because Mephibosheth was not a part of King David's family. He was the grandson of Saul, the first king of Israel. But David, in his goodness and his kindness, brought Mephibosheth in and said, you will sit at my table forever. And so that's a great story, a great example of how someone is outside the family of God and brought into the family of God. That's the point of that story, is to illustrate that. So I encourage you guys, take out your Bibles this week, read 2 Samuel chapter 9. That story of Mephibosheth, and let it be an example, illustration of our big truth that God offers adoption when we are orphans, and that gives us hope. So hey, we hope you guys have a great week this week, and we will see you right back here next week.
Have a great week.